Hey everybody, my name's Ty Walker. Thanks for coming out to the talk today. 3 years ago, I was totally broke. I had $6 in my bank account. We had been at our trout hatchery for 2 years, and I was having such a hard time trying to sell to neighbors and friends and do farmers markets and the whole bit, and it was like a total disaster. You know, I thought I wanted to get into farming to be close to my kids and live stress-free and all these things, and here I am 2 years in and I'm stressed, no money, etc. I finally just came to a point where I was like, I gotta do something different. So I started targeting high-end restaurants with our products. I got into, the first restaurant I got in was River and Rail restaurant in Roanoke. And I remember going in there, I kind of gave him my spiel, and he was like, man, this is awesome. I'm gonna put it on the menu. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. Didn't really totally know what that would entail. But then he started buying fish every week. So I'm getting a check every month, and I only made one sale. And then the light bulb kind of went off. I was like, man, this is so much easier. None of it's easy, but it's easier than trying to sell one fish to a neighbor or one fish to a friend when he was buying maybe 30 fish every week. And I really only had one interaction. And that's what kind of sent me on this whole path of wow, there's so many local producers and so much amazing food, but it's all kind of staying in the world of retail and farmers markets, and there's so many nice restaurants out there that want to buy the food, have got the money to pay for it. Why aren't we targeting those people? So that kind of started my whole journey of just dealing with restaurants. I want to back up. My wife and I run a 1930s trout hatchery in Newcastle, Virginia, called Smoke In Chimneys. This is our third season with a product to market. I think last year we did about 25,000 pounds of trout. 95% of that is going to restaurants. We're shipping the fish every week, UPS, the styrofoam coolers, ice packs. That's had its own challenges, but we have it pretty streamlined at this point. And today I really want to talk about the sales process. And I'm able to provide for my family a living income. We went to the beach this year for a week, which was awesome. But I'm able to have a successful farm business that is automated on the sales end, where you're dealing with restaurants where your product is on the menu. 2 years ago, like I said, we were doing farmers markets. Now we don't really hardly do any retail. We do some retail, no farmers markets, and just sell to restaurants. And there's 3 things that we really had to master to kind of automate our production. Again, this talk is for people that have a farm business or may want to have a farm business where you're able to make a living income off your farm. And then a lot of this stuff applies to beef or chicken or pork or vegetables or trout or whatever. But the 3 things that I want to talk about is, number 1, you have to have a system for producing the product. When you get on a menu, they want that same product pretty much every week. So you have to cater your production to weekly deliveries and a product that's similar. Again, this is gonna differ for if you're doing livestock or vegetables or what species, but if you can get your production somewhat automated and then you can figure out your distribution, I'm 100% sold on shipping your product every week. I went to DC, I went to New York City in March. Hey sissy. I went to New York City in March, met with 7 or 8 chefs. The whole trip was a total pain. I'm walking around New York City with coolers of fish and trying to meet chefs and this whole thing. But I got a couple accounts. So I went up there, I came back, and then I just mail them the product every week. I don't need a distributor. I don't need delivery people. I don't have to like buy a truck and all that stuff. You can literally use UPS as your delivery service, and you're able to insure the product. Again, you'll have a situation happen here or there, but for $30, I can send a box of product to New York City. And again, like when you're at a farmer's market, you're having to make the same sale to every single person, and then the end game is they buy maybe $15 or $20 worth of product, and then you got to do it all over again to the next person and the next person, and it was wearing on my mental health. I'll just leave it at that. But with a restaurant, they buy the product and then you've made the sale, and then they might keep the thing on the menu for like 6 months. And I mean, it may be $10 or $20 or $30,000 like over that time period where you only made one sale. So does that make sense? Again, if you got questions or whatever, pipe up. The biggest hurdle was like, how do you approach a restaurant? How do I find a restaurant that may even want my product? So our trout fluctuates in price a little bit, but most restaurants are working on like a 30% food cost, right? So if they buy a trout for $15 and they get 2 portions out of it, now they're at $7 times 3. That means that dish or that entree needs to be around $21, $22, $23 a dish. So we would vet restaurants based on their, I hope I'm not boring you guys to death. We would vet restaurants, because there's restaurants everywhere, but it's like there's only a small number they're going to be able or want this product. So A, they got to look like they're into like somewhat like local food, right? Or at least have portions of their menu that are local. And then 2, if they have an entree, if their most expensive entree is less than $25 or $22, you know that it's not even going to work. You know, and you think, well, there's not that many. Well, maybe not in Lynchburg, but Charlottesville, Fredericksburg, the 8164 corridor. There's a lot more like nice restaurants out there than you would think. So we would use that process to make a lead sheet of like, hey, these are the restaurants that we feel like may be interested. And then we would reach out to the restaurant, but not just the restaurant. You're trying to get in touch with the chef, because ultimately they're going to make the decision on whether they want the product or not. But chefs, they're busy, right? So we would go in there with our whole kind of angle of like, hey, not trying to sell you anything, not at this point. We just want to give you some samples. Just try it. You think it's going to work for your thing? And that like opened the door to even just get in the restaurant, make an appointment, and show up. Now, it was nerve-wracking for sure. They're standing there like, dude, I got 6 minutes. Like, what do you have to say? And I remember like I botched a couple, and I was like, man, I got to get what am I selling? Why am I selling it? I literally YouTube like public speaking class. It sounds it's so stupid, but I'm like, if I can't clearly, concisely, effectively communicate what I'm selling, like how am I expecting them to buy it? And I think, and I put myself in this boat too, a lot of times as like farmers, you're like, well, dude, I'm doing everything right, and I got all this amazing food, and I'm saving the world, and everybody should just like they owe me. And it's like that attitude like doesn't work. And I found out, if you have a sales issue in your farm business, you either have an attitude problem, a skills problem, or both. Any issue you're going to have is in one of those 2 boxes. Attitude problem, which is all kinds of stuff, and then maybe it's just you got a good attitude, but you just have a skills problem on the communication, or figuring out what the chef needs or wants or whatever. So this whole process, again, I was doing all this because I had no other income. I was 2 years into this thing. I had spent my last probably 10 grand on like feeding out this group of trout. So I'm like, I got a wife, I got kids, I got a pond of trout. I have got to figure out how to sell these things. So again, that was it was kind of like that backs against the wall, like, what am I gonna do kind of thing. So then I started doing some of my own like sales training and just trying to understand like how to sell an expensive fish to people, you know? And there's this guy I'm kind of coaching now, but the other day he was like, man, I emailed this place and never heard back. And I used to be in that boat, but there's a statistic that it takes between 7 and 15 touches with a lead to even get a sale. Like, but it's like, how many times do we like, oh, they didn't call me back, or like, and again, I'm guilty too, like, oh, they didn't email me back. It's like, dude, if you have a 7 to 15 touches window and you've only emailed once or twice or 3 times, you're not even in the window to even be ready to like close the thing, you know? So I think for me, it was like just understanding, dude, it's gonna take between 7 and 15 interactions to even maybe get a sale. That changed my whole paradigm. That's like, they don't answer the second email or the third or the fourth. I'm not even close to discouraged because like I'm not even in the threshold here. So a lot of that was, but then I wanted to blame everybody else. Well, it's the restaurant's fault. They suck, or, you know, this, or maybe my price. It wasn't a price issue. It was my own ability to be able to have a sales system to take a lead from like a restaurant on a page to getting the chef's email, to setting an appointment, to showing up, to giving him samples, to following up with him a couple times, and then making a sale. And that may take like a month or two. But then again, if you're able to get one of those, then that's recurring revenue for your farm that you're not having to go out every week on a Saturday and try to drum it up. All right, I want to talk about another point. So, you know, growing food like y'all are doing, like I'm doing, it's like this whole mantra of like, I want to like feed my community, you know? And it's like, that's an amazing mantra, but I feel like the way we've like gone about that has maybe not been the best way, because the model now is like, like I said, sell to a neighbor, I'll do this, I'll just kind of onesie twosie and kind of hope it builds up into this bigger thing, where we like did the opposite. Like, I was like, man, I need to get some really nice restaurants. Then all of a sudden, now the community's interested, because I'm like, hey, I'm in this place, this place, this place. Like, you're able to gain a customer, give them a product that they want, then they're promoting your stuff. Instead of you, like, you want a pork chop, you want a fish. I mean, everyone, and again, most people are familiar with a pork chop or breakfast sausage. Again, I'm doing a whole cold, dead fish, which is...
Yeah, I think it's great.
No, it is. I think it's great too, but I mean, it's like...
There's hurdles and value in education.
For sure.
So you're saying possibly
Educating your customers, like what the values this piece of fish is from you.
So the restaurant does that.
The restaurant does that for you, and they're paying you for the product. They're cooking it, they're preparing it, they're making it look really sexy on the plate with the sprig of this and that, something, a little something on top, and it's making your product that they're buying, like, it's feeding everything you're wanting. You're just going about it like a different way. We used to work at this farm. I mean, the farm was awesome. They had all kinds of different livestock operations, but like one of the main owners, she'd cook a chicken and it's half raw. And you're just like, I mean, I remember sitting there like, what? The whole point of this it's for like people to eat it, right? Well, if we can't even cook it and tell people how to cook a whole chicken or how to do lamb chops or whatever, a rib roast, like how can we expect, if we're the one raising it and cooking it in our own house, why am I irritated that the neighbor isn't buying it? Like, again, I'm not trying to get too philosophical, but a lot of it was a lot of like self-inflection and reflect, like how can I go about this in a way that I can use other businesses or organizations to help me get to where I'm going, which is promoting whole fish. And, yeah.
So have you, with that experience with restaurants, have they networked outside of themselves and said, hey, contact Ty and say...
Each sale is worth 4 to 7 referrals.
I see.
That's across any industry, anything. So it's like, I remember I was on a menu. It was in DC, Michelin-star. It took me a long time to get on the menu. And he only ran the trout for like 6 weeks. And I was like, hey man, no problem. Again, not getting offended, because getting offended is, you just go get a job. Like, don't do this. I was like, hey man, no worries, I get it. Anyone else in the area you think may want it? He's like, hey man, call this guy Patrick. So I called Patrick. I've been on that menu for 2 years. But if I never asked, or if I gotten pissed off and been like, screw you, would I rather say screw you, or I'd rather sell 2 years worth of fish to the next guy and just take that on the chin, you know? So, I mean, I'm not trying to get too much into character development. I'm just saying, if you're like, man, with just those metrics, it's going to take this many follow-ups to get a sale. Each sale I get, if they like it and will vouch for it, is worth 3 to 4 referrals. And if 1 or 2 of those referrals, and then that's a system then that you're then working. Then it takes a lot of the emotion out of it. Like, man, I hope, like, it's, hey man, we got our lead sheet. These are potential restaurants. We hit them up. We meet with the chef. We bring in samples. We'll get on some of the menus. Maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it's for 2 years. I don't know. But you got to treat all of them the same. That way it's already emotional enough as it is. You got sheep get out. You got a big rainstorm. Like, it's your livelihood. But at least the sales part of it is a little more streamlined and automated, because then if you're on so many menus and they're like, hey, we think we may run it for 3 or 4 months, then you can like literally make a budget. Like, hey, we know over the next couple months, within some reason, we'll have this much coming in. Okay, we can get a new implement for the tractor, or we can get this, and like it helps you like project, as opposed to just like, well, I hope it did good at the market this week. Like, when you sell to an end user, they're just buying it because they want it. There's no really business incentive. They just want to eat that, right? Well, a restaurant is a business that's making money on your product. Well, if the people coming in there like what you're selling them, of course, they're going to buy more, or they're going to find more things for it. So helping them be successful, my job over time has turned into, how do I make the restaurant successful with my product? Because that's going to make me better, and that's going to make them want to buy more fish or refer me more or whatever. So it kind of is a self kind of fulfilling way of, your time and energy is spent on helping them. As a bit like, buy fish, me, buy my thing. You can be like, dude, how can I make you more successful? Because if I'm making you successful, then it comes back to you. So, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I guess I had 2 questions. One, how did you get from like our local area to New York City? That's a hard place to break into.
Okay, I'm gonna break it down. What town are y'all in?
Appomattox.
Okay, so like, what's the biggest town near there?
Well, we got
Charlottesville,
Lynchburg.
well, Lynchburg.
How far is Charlottesville? How far is Lynchburg? How far is Lynchburg?
45 minutes.
Okay, so literally, and this sounds stupid, but I do this like on a weekly basis. You're like, dude, okay, best restaurants in Lynchburg, right? Look at all their menus. You know, you want to shoot for something that's like a minimum of $20 entree and up. Like if everything is like 14, 13, 12, 18, just don't worry about it. But there'll be 6 or 7, some you never even heard of, right? Boom, here. And again, a lot of those, they're gonna take, they're happy with frozen stuff, you know? So I'm saying then from there, hit them up on Instagram, email them, and then call them a couple times. It's gonna take a little bit to get a contact, but then all you say is, hey, I'm so-and-so with this farm. We got some amazing grass-fed, grass-finished lamb or whatever over here. Would love to bring some samples into the chef. When's a good time to do that? You just, just a vac sealed pork or a lamb chop or whatever, a pack of ground lamb. You go in there. The chefs, again, they've got salespeople in there. I mean, think of all the stuff they buy. You going in there as a farmer, being like, dude, I raised this. This is what I'm passionate about. This is why I'm doing this. Show them some pictures of the farm. I mean, give them your why you're doing it. It is amazing on how many will be like, dude, I'm so glad you came in here. Like, this is awesome. I'm not gonna say it happens every time, but you give them a product and then follow up a day or two later on like, you know, does it make sense to make an initial order? You know, and then maybe they'll ask you about prices, they'll ask you about, you know, delivery and whatever. But then just getting that one, you're like, dude, he's buying 15 lamb chops a week. Like, I remember the first one, I'm like, dude, I'm killing it. I mean, for me, that was a big deal to then walk away and be like, man, he's buying this much every week. I hope I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I'm just saying, like,
So then why did you jump from there to New York City?
so part of it was I just wanted to be in a restaurant in New York City. Part of me was just personal. Like, I just want to be there. There's tons of other restaurants. I just was like, man, can I do it? Can I show up to a city that I got no experience in, cold, and like make a sale and come back and send fish there, you know? But I would have never gotten there had I not gone to my local places and just gotten comfortable sharing my story. And it sounds so stupid, but writing my story out, and hey, that you can say it in you know, a minute and a half. Hey, I'm so-and-so with this farm. You know, hey, my name's Ty Walker with Smoke In Chimneys. I operate a 1930s trout hatchery in Newcastle, Virginia, where we raise trout basically like they did 100 years ago. Like, I've got a whole little spiel, and it's like, if you don't have a spiel, you go in there, and I'm still a little nervous. I mean, you go to a kitchen, there's 50 cooks in there, and you're talking to the main guy, and he's like, dude, I got 2 minutes. If you don't have something down, you're like, well, fumbling, but again, that's no one's fault but mine, which is amazing because I can be like, dude, I can practice at home. It sounds so stupid, but I'm telling you, when you go in there and you're ready to look him in the eye and be like, dude, this is what I got. This is why we're doing it. This is going to be a great fit. Your customers are going to love it. They're like, all right, let's try it. So again, practicing that at home. And then once you get the first restaurant account, you'd be like, bro, this is it. Like, because then it can help automate your production. Because you're like, hey, if they're buying this, then I need we need 10 more ewes next year of this. Like, everything is so helter-skelter, you can't plan your production at all. It's hard enough to plan it with accounts. With no accounts, then you're able to scale up, and that product has a home. You're not scaling up on just a hope and prayer that you'll get a phone call. I mean, that doesn't work. Like, so for us, I mean, to go from 10,000 fish to 25,000, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. But we've been able to do that incrementally because we're able to add accounts, and we've been able to comfortably scale up without laying in bed at night like, oh God, help me. Like, I hope we can sell all this. Does that make sense? So,
Well, you gotta hustle.
no, for sure. And, yeah, but the hustling is methodical, you know, and we just started, and then we're going to use this. I just started like a group because I helped this one guy, right? He was like, man, Ty, I need some help. He's here locally. I'm not going to say who it was. Great guy. He's like, man, I need some help, Ty. I was like, look, dude, I'm going to help you. I just want to help you. We had 2 30-minute phone calls, and within 3 weeks, he got his first restaurant account. And he literally just texted me like the day or two of him, you know, their farm on the menu. And I was like, dude, like, I'm passionate about like helping farmers like make money on their farm so they can support their family and do what they love. That being said, we just started this group. It's $30 a month. I'm doing like weekly coaching calls. It's like a community of people that are like, dude, I tried this and I went to this restaurant, and because I've done this pretty much all, it's been a very, to be honest, a very lonely road. So with this other guy I'm helping and some other people, I'm like, man, we need to all like just like be a team and be each other's support and practice our spiels and go over pricing and go over what do I say when they say this and all that stuff I had to like figure out from zero. I'm just happy to help. So I got more information on that. But all right, everybody, I'm Ty Walker. Thanks for coming out. We're over here at our booth for the rest of the day. I got a talk at 12:15 at the main stage. Come see us. Thank you.